So, topic today is actually ecological adaptations of hydrophytes. That's what you have to study. Types and ecological adaptations. So, basically, these are types of different types of, when you say about phytes, they are basically some plants. Some plants, it can be any type of plant. Okay, and we are going to study their ecological adaptation. The first one which we will study today are hydrophytes. So basically, they are ecological adaptation to water extremes. Extremes means towards the end, খুব বেশি জল বা একদম জল নেই. Okay. So hydrophytes, as the name says, hydro means water. They grow in excess water. So they are grow on extremely wet soil where water is available to plants in abundance. They are divided into 5 types. Okay. আরেকটু নিচে দাও, দেখো the first one, free floating hydrophytes. দেখতে পাচ্ছ? Free floating, as the name says, they float freely. They remain in contact with water and air, but not soil. They float freely on water surface. তার মানে ভাসে, জলের উপরে ভাসছে গাছগুলো. এক্সাম্পল, ভুলফিয়া, লেমনা, স্পাইরোডেলা, এই তিনটের নাম মনে রাখো, ভুলফিয়া, লেমনা and Spirodela as examples. Azolla is also very important, but still lemna is very important. তাহলে দেখো first picture, Wolfia. Can you see Wolfia's picture? ছোট ছোট গোল 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 floating on top on the water. Then lemna, একটু roots বেরোয় জলের মধ্যে, but they don't touch the soil. Is it? The next one are the rooted hydrophytes with floating leaves. তার মানে কি জলের তলায় সয়েলের মধ্যে তাদের roots চলে গেছে. The roots have gone to the soil below and have bifurcated over there. ঠিক আছে? But their leaves are floating. So their roots are fixed in mud, but leaves have long petioles and keep them floating on the water surface. Example, Trappa, Nelumbo, Nymphia, Marsilia. Let us go to figure 3.2. Next page. See Trappa? So basically you see their roots, they are attached to the mud or soil. All the 4 plants, Trappa, Nelumbo, Nymphia, Marsilia, their roots are attached to the mud. And sometimes what happens, for example in Marsilia, the leaves, they go above the water also. But some leaves you can see, they are floating, the leaves are floating. In Nymphia you can see the leaves are floating. Okay, sir. The next one is submerged floating hydrophytes. They remain in contact with only water. They are submerged in water. They are completely submerged and not rooted in the mud. Not floating. When you are floating, you are in contact with air. When you are and water, but it's just only with water. No soil, no air. Only floating underwater. Ceratophyllum. Ceratophyllum is the most important. Go to figure 3.3. Picture of Ceratophyllum. Figure 3. Submerged floating hydrophytes. Then the 4th one is rooted submerged hydrophytes. As the name says, rooted, they are in no contact with air basically. For example, Hydrilla, Potamogeton, Isoetis, Valinicerea. This Hydrilla is the most important of them, which you have all seen. So, stay, they are completely submerged in water and rooted in soil. ঠিক আছে? No contact with air. So let us look at a picture of Hydrilla. 3.4 এতে দেখো। First picture, Hydrilla. জলের বাইরে একটুখানি গেছে, but they will not survive. Hydrilla needs to be kept underwater. In the botany department, there are lots of Hydrilla available. And the last one is the rooted emergent hydrophytes. What are them? They grow in shallow water. The water is not very deep. Yes. They are hydrophilous forms which although require excess of water, but their shoots মানে উপরে যেটা বেরোচ্ছে shoots, root উপরে যে স্টেমটা বেরোচ্ছে ওটা shoot, but their shoots, they are also known as assimilatory organs, are partly or completely exposed to air. Hydrilla was totally submerged, but here it is up, they are partly exposed to air. The root system is completely underwater, fixed in soil. Okay. For example, Sagittaria. Figure 3.5 এ দেখো। এই যে ফার্স্টটা Sagittaria, 3.5 the first one. Sagittaria টাই নাম মনে রেখো। Okay. The next thing which you need to study is ecological adaptations in hydrophytes. Since they are so much in water, their structures have got some ecological adaptation. They need some adaptations to survive in water. Now, what are they? First, let us look at the morphological features. In the roots, first roots, point 1. The principal organs of water absorption, as you know, are the roots. In such plants, roots is of secondary importance because water is present in abundance. Roots are entirely absent in Wolffia and Salvinia and Ceratophyllum, or they are poorly developed in Hydrilla. Okay, first line ta pore daw, only the first line. Okay, everywhere you have to study the first line, don't go for the other lines, otherwise it will become difficult for you to remember. The next point, in some like Wolffia and Salvinia, roots may be absent or poorly developed as in Hydrilla. Okay? Then next is root hairs are absent or poorly developed. Obviously, because root hairs absorb more water, but they are in water, they don't need so much. Then root caps are usually absent. A root has got a cap known as root cap. It is absent. দরকার নেই, জলের মধ্যেই আছে আর কি। Root cap protects it against the soil abrasions, internal tissues, but they are in water, no problem. They are entirely absent. Roots, if they are present, are generally fibrous, adventitious, reduced in length, unbranched or poorly branched. Bas. Fibrous means they fiber like, or they may be adventitious, ঝুলে থাকে, they may be reduced in length, ছোট্ট হতে পারে. They may be unbranched or they may be poorly branched. ডালপালা নেই. আচ্ছা, in some plants such as Gessecia repens, there develop some floating aerial roots in addition to adventitious roots. The next is stem. Roots, রুটের উপরে আসে ডান্ডাটা stem. In submerged forms as hydrilla and potamogeton, stem is long, slender, spongy and flexible. লম্বা, পাতলা, spongy টেপা যায়, flexible মোড়া যায়. In free floating forms, it may be slender, floating horizontally or on water surface as in azolla. Bass. এই লাইন এখানে শেষ. এইটুকুই পড়বে. আচ্ছা. Point 2. Vegetative propagation by runners, stolons, stems, root tubers, dominant apices, offsets, etc. And that is the most common method of reproduction. Runners are certainly a process, something comes out from the plant and it goes to another place. And these runners, what happens with these runners are they reproduce asexually. Next is leaves. In submerged forms, leaves are thin and are either long and ribbon shaped, or long and linear, or finitely dissected. That's this much. These three names you must remember. There are emergent forms as ranunculus and sagittaria. They show heterophyly with submerged, floating and aerial leaves. Heterophyly means presence of different types of leaves. Floating leaves আছে, aerial leaves আছে. ওকে, ওই ছবি টবি আছে, চাইলে দেখে নিয়ে ওগুলো দিয়ে দিয়েছি. Now, let us come to morphological. The flowers and seeds here, they are less common in submerged forms. Where flowers are developed, seeds are rarely formed. So, anatomical features. What are the anatomical features? You have the roots. ঠিক আছে? In roots, cuticle is the roots se পৌঁছেছো তো anatomical features. Cuticle is either completely absent or if present, it is thin and poorly developed. Cuticle is the covering, either absent, not present. Epidermis, the outer layer, is usually single layered, made up of thin walled parenchymatous cells. Parenchyma cells are large cells. Filled. So these parenchyma, they are made up of thin walled parenchymatous cells. Cortex, the inside region. Cortex is well developed, thin walled and parenchymatous, major portion of which is occupied by well developed prominent air sacs. হাওয়া ভরা থাকে. For floating, air cavities, and they are known as the aerenchyma. This is a question which comes. What is aerenchyma? This offers resistance to bending, stress, increases buoyancy and allows a rapid gaseous exchange. Vascular tissues. What are the vascular tissues? Xylem, phloem. They are poorly developed. They don't know. They are in water. So why do they need extensive network of xylem and phloem flowing through it? Jol, whenever it wants, water can enter. Wherever it wants, it enters. So that network, the water from the soil is sent to the leaves through xylem and phloem. It is not required here in these hydrophytes. So therefore, the vascular system is poorly developed. Now in the stems, anatomy of stems. Cuticle absent, same thing, same points. Epidermis single layer. Below the epidermis comes hypodermis, the layer of cells. They are known as hypodermis. Hypodermis is completely absent in submerged forms. First line, always study the first line. Cortex, same like roots. Cortex is well developed, thin walled, and parenchymatous. Then you have the endodermis. It is generally distinct. Okay. Endodermis is the inner layer of cells. It's very clear. Endodermis, hypodermis, epidermis. The cortex contains in between you have the cortex, cortical cells. Vascular bundles generally lack bundle sheaths. Very poorly developed vascular bundles are. Mechanical tissues are absent because they are in water. Now, if you look at the leaves, same cuticle is absent, epidermis single layer, leaves don't have stomata because there is no gaseous exchange which is taking place in the aerial things. So stomata is not required, it's not present. The leaf mesophyll tissues is undifferentiated in submerged leaves, whereas it is single layered in Potamogeton. It's a type of plants. Undifferentiated. Why do leaf cells need the different জল আসছে light আসছে they're taking dissolved carbon dioxide? What is the requirement? No requirement. ENVS ঠিক আছে চলে যাও তাহলে ঠিক আছে হ্যাঁ আচ্ছা okay, the vascular tissues are very much reduced. They don't need vascular tissues. কেন দেয়ার জলের মধ্যেই রয়েছে জাইলেম ফ্লোয়েম কি দরকার লিভসের মধ্যে water is easily available. Mechanical, all the points are basically same. ঠিক আছে একটাই পড়লে লিফেতেও একই ছাড়বে স্টেমেতেও এক ছাড়বে রুটেও এক ছাড়বে সব সেম ওকে and the petioles in leaves, especially if you talk about the petioles, tip of the leaves. Eigulo small 1 or 2 points like petioles and all you have to give additionally for leaves. Otherwise, all the points are same. Even if you don't give petioles, maybe you will lose half mark, but you'll get the rest of the marks. The petioles, wherever they well developed as in India, also possess internally the various tissue characteristics of a typical hydrophyte. An abundance of parenchyma, lots of air space is present. Okay, so this is actually the end of today's class. Next day we will talk about the next type of phytes. We will talk lithophytes, xerophytes, mesophytes. We will be talking about them. Okay, Chutti.